I think that Pentiment can only be described as a boring game. It's objectively boring. You walk around, you're in a town, you talk to people, occasionally you do something like this. There's nothing very dynamic about the gameplay, and I don't think there's really any way to make a case that there is anything dynamic. The best way to describe Pentiment is that it is a very deep-cut game about this 1500s history, but it also has a slider to make everyone's head bigger. It knows that it can't take itself 100% seriously. It's very dynamic in its tone in that it doesn't want you falling asleep. It has to, I guess, modernize things to an extent, but also have a sense of humor and give you choices that allow you to have some fun with the game. You are Andreas Mahler. Andreas Mahler is you. He is the main character of this game, and you get to choose things like his background and the things he says in conversation. The world that he's in is concerned about a few things. It's concerned about taxes. It's concerned about harvest. It's concerned about the preservation of Christianity. Things that you're not exactly used to games taking on. And what you find in this game is that Andreas Mahler has his own motivations. He's very concerned about his friends. He's very concerned about his work. In Act 1, he's working on his masterpiece. He's this character that when you first meet him has that young, kind of boisterous, he wants to be involved, he just wants to help everyone, and he also thinks that the work he's doing as an artist has the capability of helping everyone. Andreas is a character that goes through a journey. As he ages throughout this game, you are going to see someone that has real issues with the fact that he could have chosen the wrong path with things. As you accuse suspects of the various murders that happen in this game, he's concerned that he's done the wrong thing. He's concerned that he married the wrong woman, or concerned that perhaps he's even gone down the wrong career path. These motivations aren't apparent immediately, but I think it's good to know that you eventually get there because it's boring. This game is worth playing because you know that Act 2 exists. Act 2 Andreas is so much different than Act 1. It's important to have this character that is willing to ask these questions of if his fate is escapable, or if he's already sealed his fate because of the decisions he's made. It reminds me a lot of some of the current HBO shows going on, where the main question that seems to exist in shows like Barry and Succession is, am I a good person? Or perhaps someone is just willing to declare themselves a good person because it makes them feel comfortable. Andreas Mahler is not going down the exact same path as, say, a Kendall Roy in Succession or Barry in the self-titled show Barry. But Andreas borders on being one of those characters that is very concerned about himself and how he is perceived by the rest of the world, and how the other world, the afterlife, how that may perceive him as well. Pentiment is at its slowest when it wants you to wander. It makes sense though, you need some of these slower moments to build more familiarity. Eventually, because of these slower moments, you know your way around the town. You begin to know people around the town generally and where they're going to be at any given time. It's not a problem to have these slower moments, except in a few cases. In the beginning of Act 1, you're not sold on the game. You wish you could kind of just get in on the action, and you can't. But this is one of those essential slower moments. You need to go around and talk to people. You need to get acquainted with what is going on. It's the beginning of Act 3 that it's just a screeching halt. Screeching halt of pacing. I wanted to stop playing, to be honest. But luckily, you only have to put up with it for about 2 or 3 hours, which may sound like a mountain. I found myself, I was just kind of clicking through things, hoping I would get to the next thing quicker. And luckily, the game ends very strong. I encourage you not to fall off the game if you experience that lull in Act 3. But this is a rough one, and I didn't think that the slowness really added to everything overall. The town of Tassing is somewhat annoying to traverse, but its problems are far from annoying. Something looms over this town. I'm not talking about just the abbey or the local government that is over them. The game follows these persistent murders that are happening, and while those are the most exciting gameplay portions, it's the dynamics of the town that become apparent once those murders happen that are the real interesting bits of this game. You discover different relationships through the investigations, and the details that are filled in about each town member I found really fun to learn. Tassing is defined by two things: class and faith. People in the upper part of town hate those that are in the lower part, and vice versa. And the church is incredibly important to these people while also being a significant barrier to a higher quality of life. And you get to see people who come and go from the town over the years, and whether it's because of death or other endeavors, it's always interesting to see, once an act change happens, what changes have taken place in the town of Tassing. Pentiment is boring, but it made me think a lot about these topics and themes that no other game has really attempted to make me think about. So if you're able to put up with some of the slow bits, I think this is a must play.